Satsang session on Sunday, the 22nd May 1983, continuing Savitri, Book 2, Canto 2.
I have been thinking about one or two insights thrown by the mother in the course of her remarks, and one of them is that in our preoccupation with daily life, programs, necessities, calls, we forget the central purpose for which we are here. She says that the prime purpose is inner liberation. Everything that we do must have some relevance to this central need of our being. We can't help but engage ourselves in various types of activities. But we tend to lose ourselves so much in these activities that we are hardly aware of the purpose of our doing these activities. We work, each one of us, in a collective organization like this, undertakes to do some work. But during the work, are we conscious the purpose of this work? Or are we lost in the mechanics of the work? How quickly to do it, how to complete it, what next? So our consciousness is always gathered outward, whether it is reading books, studying, working, playing, or cooking, eating. We do these things as anybody else would do. There is a pattern that people at leisure do these things. And what most of us do is not radically different from this set way of doing things. Is that for which we turn to Mother and Sri Aurobindo? Do we look into ourselves each day before we go to bed and ask ourselves, what have I gained today? Have I taken a step towards the truth which I had not done yesterday? In what way have I disentangled any knot that ties me to nature, attachments, preferences, prejudices. What have we done in that direction? Is my soul more liberated today than, say, a week ago? So she invites our close attention to this central problem of inner liberation. All talk of transformation, supramentalization is academic, theoretical, till we have achieved the elements of liberation. And in our yoga, the first capital step is in awakening our psychic element and activizing it in day-to-day life. She says that this pursuit of inner quest must not only be our occupation, but our preoccupation. It must always dominate our horizon. Every work that we do, every thought that we think, every feeling that we emanate must be related to this central purpose. And what do we mean by relating our life to it? Positively, by seeing that every moment is consistent with the truth that we seek. Negatively, it does not contradict the reality. That's the purpose of our life to reach. Otherwise, we may be doing work for 50 years, studying literature, say holy literature, for 100 years. We may be wise in the mind. We may be efficient and clever in our work performance, but it does not really affect the inner state, the inner status. She points to this need of always being alive, to the need of the soul. Our senses are turned so much outward that our ears are deaf to the call of the soul. We are obsessed in fulfilling our daily wishes, what we call needs, which could very well turn out to be luxuries, asserting our will, grading down other elements, and we are lost, if not externally, physically, psychologically. Always the mind moves in directions, dimensions which have nothing to do with the inner liberation. That is a point which we have to keep in mind. We can study Savitri, we can enjoy Savitri, we can be lost in Savitri, we can be identified with that poetry. But unless we allow the reading or the study to have a direct effect on our day-to-day life, we could just as well read any other book. When he speaks of the wideness, of the vastness, well, it is not enough to mentally appreciate the imagery of the ocean, of the sea, but something in us must respond. Our own consciousness must take on something of that character. When he speaks of how love in her was wider than the universe, it's a beautiful expression. We note it, we pass on. But have we ever thought of comparing it with whatever fraction of love we can embody? In what way can we improve the quality of our love? Why do we read it? Why has it taken 50 years to bring it to that level of perfection? Surely not to establish himself as a poet. He was a born poet and he didn't care what anybody or the world thought of him. It is to communicate his experience, the dynamism of his tapasya, to anyone who cared to benefit, in the manner of a Vedic rishi who stored his spiritual ascesis, that power, in a mantra, so that it could be a means of change, of progress, of realization for anybody in posterity who would wait upon that mantra. So, it does not matter whether we read all the works of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother or not. What is important is to one single book can change our life, can affect the inner release. That single book, Yoga and its Objects, for instance, written in 1911, it is become a fashion to say, oh, Sri Aurobindo moved farther than that afterwards, and it no longer represents his present views. But there is also a note by him, which is in the archives, where he says, it's true, it was written at an early stage, but it should not be disturbed. It should not be changed. Every sentence is a bullet. And if we follow every line of yoga and its objects, we can have what they call self-realization, Atma Sakshatkara. And without it, no supramental yoga is ever possible. The second insight that has been occupying my mind today is what made me recall an apparent joke popular among business executives I believe it was a Western authority on business administration. I just don't get his name. He has been invited number of times by the government of India. He said that the urgent shuts out the important. There are certain important objectives, whether in an office, business office, a lawyer's chambers, in our own lives, in a spiritual ashram like this. Certain important objectives. But day in and day out, urgent things crop up. In everybody's life, in the institutional life, priorities. This thing has to be done, this has to be done. Now, whether this is as important as that, nobody bothers to ask. In the local thing, we forget the larger perspective. Our eyes get focused on the local horizons. So, the urgency may relate to packing a present for a friend whose birthday is there, giving it to him in time, attending to some medical appointment, reading newspaper before somebody else comes. Each one has his own urgent things. Files, those who receive files, yesterday's files, day before yesterday's files, these are all waiting. I have to finish them before somebody comes. Now, each urgency creates subsequent urgencies. So there is a chain of priorities, artificial priorities, which spring up and keep us their prisoner. And when we are lost in it, when we lose ourselves helplessly, the hostiles have a field day, they laugh at us. How we have got entangled in small knots, wanting to release the cosmic knots of ignorance, choosing a different way of life. We get lost in petty knots. Outside, there is a pressure of life, circumstances. You are not allowed to lose yourself in small personal petty rounds. There are the shocks of the society, shocks of life situations. But here, under Mother's protective umbrella, we are spared many of these raw situations of life. But do we keep that important objective and say all these urgencies are secondary? This one has to be done. All our appointments, all our engagements, they will be for eternity. If I am not there, somebody else will have to do it and does it. But what have I come for? So Mother wants us to keep this background always in mind. Whether to be learned, to be an authority in philosophy, in literary subjects, to be able to organize, harmonize a business team, a workers' team. All these are important in their own place. But compared to the commitment, central commitment, they should occupy a secondary place. We shall never lose the sense of proportion, the right perspective of weighing things and giving them just the time, just the attention that they should occupy in an overall scheme. It has been a lament of all institutions as they grow. I have seen these in the West and also here, that people engaged in one section tend to be totally oblivious to the need of other sections. For them, their little section is the whole world. And they will fight tooth and nail for giving of facilities to other sections, forgetting that unless the other sections are alive, my section can't live. These things are taken for granted in the mentally organized institutions outside. But where the mental organization has been set aside in order to give room to an inner and a spiritual organization, these sectional frictions are suicidal, because personalities get involved and the real need of the total situation is always lost. So to come back to the point, we always have to keep the overall objective of our life in mind, the central purpose of our seeking, and everything has to be related, to be turned into a feeder for the growth of the soul. And it is in that spirit that we must continue our study of Savitri. Every time we have to look back and see, go over the portions and see what is there in these lines that I should learn for my sadhana. Is there a new idea? Is there something which corrects my previous understanding? Only then would our study be fruitful from the point of view for which Mother has gathered us. We still have some time left and we could do a few lines. Now Sri Aurobindo describes that subtle world, subtle physical world, where Ashwapati is watching things, experiencing. He says, in that fair, subtle realm behind our own, the form is all, and physical gods are kings. Here, in our world, life, movement, change, that is important. Form, the external form is necessary, but it is not everything. But there in the subtle physical world, the form has top priority. The shape of a thing, the form assumed by a movement is more important than anything else. And the physical gods who preside over formation, they are the kings. Not the mental gods who preside over ideas, not the vital gods who impel our life energies, but the physical gods. The inspiring light plays in fine boundaries. A form implies limit. They may be very fine limits, fine boundaries, but the play of that light has to confine itself to those boundaries. It cannot be boundless. A faultless beauty comes by nature's grace. In that realm, everything is beautiful without a fault, and nobody has to make an effort to build that beauty. It comes naturally. Nature's grace. There, liberty is perfection's guarantee. Liberty is there, but that liberty always is conducive to perfection. Not like liberty in our ignorant world, which destroys all perfection. Our liberty is license, but there it is a guarantee of perfection. Although the absolute image lacks of everything, the absolute possible is not there. The Word incarnate, the potent Word, the Word embodying the truth is not there, nor the sheer spiritual ecstasy, that also is not there. Still, he says, all is a miracle of symmetric charm. Everything is charming. Everything has symmetry. There is a charm, not of irregularity, but of symmetry. Absolute, perfect proportion. A fantasy of perfect line and rule. Here, we can't have that. Things interfere. But there, the arrangement of lines, the rules according to which things are arranged, they are all perfect. It is a fantasy of perfections. A thing which we can't imagine in our world. There, all feel satisfied in themselves and whole. All the beings in that world are satisfied, self-contented, contented with themselves and with the whole world. A rich completeness is by limit made. By limiting itself to this perfection of form, there is a plentiful completeness. If we don't put limits, there is always a scope for infinite expansion. So you can't say completeness. A marvel in an utter littleness abounds. Things are not too vast, but in every little form there is beauty, there is charm, there is marvel of construction. An intricate rapture riots in a small space. It may be a very small space, but it is full of the dance of a complicated rapture, a rapture of many kinds. Each rhythm is kin to its environments. Each rhyme, each rhythm, each movement is in tune with its environment. Each line is perfect and inevitable. Each object faultlessly built for charm and use. All is enamored of its own delight. It has no further aim. There is no seeking for anything else. Everything is satisfied with itself, beautiful, contented, charming, well-formed, that's all. Intact it lives, its lines of its perfection sure, in a heaven pleased, self-glad immunity. It is self-glad. immune from all other feelings, content to be. It has need of nothing more. Here was not futile effort's broken heart. Just as we find in our world, many efforts become futile and we are broken-hearted. But nothing of that was there. Exempt from the ordeal and the test. There are no tests imposed, no ordeals through which one has to pass through, empty of opposition and of pain. It was a world that could not fear nor grieve. It had no grace of error or defeat. Here is a poetic charm of expression. It says,